today's episode, we're diving into something that will help you find content creation easier.
Welcome to JFDI with the Two Lauras, the weekly podcast where we're here every Tuesday to share tips, ideas and insights about working as a freelance social media marketer. We're known for the occasional rant and rabbit hole, but today we're going to try our best to stay on topic as we're discussing tactics to make your content creation easier, more timely, and also help it resonate more with your audience. We're always talking about how you can offer a four-figure service, and what we're talking about today will help you with that. But if you need more help to charge those high rates and work with clients with ease, then definitely check out the Social Media Manager's Toolkit, where we'll give you everything you need to win and work with clients. The link is in the show notes, or you can go direct to thetwolauras.com/toolkit. Now, in my notes, it says we're going to get straight on with the show, but I've just thought of something that we need to say before we get on with the show, Laura. So we had a DM in our Instagram messages last week, the week before, whenever it was. Someone saying they never knew who they were talking to or who they were listening to on the podcast.
On Threads.
So this is our voices. Hi, I'm Laura Moore. I'm the blonde one who drinks a lot of Diet Coke. Who are you?
I'm Laura Davis. I am the one with brown hair. Generally, I'm known for drinking gin, but if I'm honest, I drink a lot more tea at the moment than gin.
And you can always notice that it's Laura Davis on the podcast because she's the one who gets everything wrong when she's trying to come up with an amazing saying.
Yeah, I'm the one who doesn't know any sayings.
Which is amazing. Anyway, now you know who you're listening to.
I'm a trier.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can never accuse you of not trying. Right, so now you know who you're listening to. Let's dive in. What are we talking about?
I can't dye my hair blonde.
Well, you can. We'll just have to record a new podcast.
True. Right. So yeah, let's crack on. So we hear time and time again how people struggle to come up with content ideas. And the reality is that there are a lot of content ideas at your fingertips.
Yeah. Literally right in front of you.
Right in front of you. Everywhere you look. And people are like, yeah, but where do I look? How do I find that information? And it's all achieved through the power of what is termed social listening. And I don't think people realise how useful and helpful social listening can be for when you're needing to create content. And it's not just about content. There are obviously much wider benefits. But
yeah. And if you're listening to Laura saying that, thinking, oh, that's right, I know how to do social listening. I've got notifications turned on for when someone mentions my client. That's not what we're talking about. We're going much deeper than that. So don't tune out. Yeah. You're going to learn loads in this episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely more than just, reading the comments that someone replies to on your client's, LinkedIn account. It's about kind of being more intentional than that and looking at what is being said away from just your clients or your own business's social media accounts, and understanding where there's gaps in what people are saying that highlights that there are maybe gaps that you can then fill what's happening with your competitors. Maybe that's identifying some content needs. Maybe there's questions going on in your competitors' comments that you as a brand or your client's brand wants to respond to. There's things that are happening in the industry, things that might be in the news, there might be events, there's loads of things. Thought pieces, articles on LinkedIn, loads, basically.
Okay. Dramatic. And I think a lot of people hear the term social listening and crap their pants thinking, oh my God, this sounds really technical. I don't know how to do this. This is scary. It's just another thing I've got to add to my list. But a lot of you are probably already doing this under the name of research, because a lot of it is research, isn't it?
Yeah. I can imagine people sit down and think, right, I need to go and do, a bit of research, find out what's happening so I can create some content or understand something a bit better to be able to create the content. And that is social listening. That is listening to what is going on in an industry. So you're probably already doing it and maybe just don't see it as social listening and don't structure it in a certain way, but you're probably already doing it.
Yeah.
It's not a big convoluted task, is it? It's just something that is there It's something that we just do as and when we need to.
And we're going to talk about loads of different ways that you can do it, but don't get overwhelmed thinking you have to go and do them all right now, all at once. So like some of these things you might do once and then you might not do them again for like weeks, months, whatever. Other things you might automate and, you just have to wait until those pings come in. So don't get overwhelmed by all the things we're going to say. Some will be relevant right now, some won't.
Yeah, absolutely. And just remember, this is a brilliant way to stay in your clients' good books, I think.
Yeah.
Like my clients would love it if I would ever pick up the phone and say, oh, did you know this is what people are saying about your brand?
Yeah.
Because they don't have access to that information. They don't know how to find that. Or I would go to my client and say, hey, did you know this event is happening?
Yeah.
Why aren't you involved in it?
I've had clients who've had their customers saying, oh, I saw you in blah, blah, blah magazine. And they didn't even know they were in the magazine.
Yeah.
And it's all bad. Picking up all those sorts of things. If your client's products are mentioned, in like an affiliate roundup in The Guardian or whatever, you might not know that that's happened because they may never have contacted the company that they're going to put you in there. So, it's all that social listening to kind of pick up on all of that stuff, isn't it? So should we talk about the two different types of kind of social listening? So there's the type that you will probably already think of as social listening, which really is social monitoring, which is that reactive stuff. It's checking the notifications to see if you've been mentioned anywhere. It's like replying to the DMs. It's looking at the comments and, if there's anything negative, escalating it. If there's anything positive, replying to it and maybe using that in other ways, keeping tabs on all of that kind of engagement that's coming direct to the company. And then there's the social, so that was social monitoring. And then there's the social listening, which is more proactive. So that's looking at a kind of broader spectrum, spotting trends, analysing like sentiment. And these sort of things happen even if your client isn't tagged, right? So these will be things like, if you see people talk, say you sell skincare and you are in some beauty group, seeing what people are talking about in relation to related products, those sorts of things, right? Which is why we say it's very much related to research, because some of these things you're going to actually have to go out and actively think about what am I looking for, etc.
The social listening is more about what's happening away from your social media account.
Exactly.
It's happening in other places.
Yeah. Well, you may have been mentioned, but you may not have been tagged, so therefore it doesn't get picked up. You know? Or people have mentioned, that something that your client is well known for, but they haven't mentioned the product name or the brand name. But if you're in the right places, you'll see them talking about those sorts of things.
Or you'll recognise a photo or picture of a product or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sometimes it is just about being in the right place.
Yeah, totally.
And knowing where those right places are.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what's the point of it?
Yeah, so why are we doing this? So I think one of the things that I would find really useful is where you will identify the pain points, because you're seeing what people are really saying about the brand or the product or the service. So you start to really understand the audience's pain points.
Yeah. And you can also understand like what's frustrating them, but do they even know that there's a solution? So you can kind of identify the level of awareness, and that will give you ideas of what kind of level of awareness your content needs to be. Because if you're talking constantly about a product, but nobody realizes that they've got the problem that product solves, you need that problem awareness kind of content, right? So it's kind of picking all of that stuff out as well. And using the language they're using.
Exactly. And I think sometimes content goes over people's heads because we make it more.
Well, that's like you, Laura Davis, in your stories yesterday on Instagram. You may well have seen these. Laura posted a story about using SPF on her face but not leaving the house. And someone quickly told her that that's not the only thing that you're using SPF for. Now, great content would have taught you that long ago.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And if you're working for a skincare brand and you don't realise that people don't realise that, using SPF isn't just for when you leave the house, that could be a great way to create some content. Very niche example there, but
very niche indeed. Okay, so so it's good for identifying kind of what those audience pain points are, but you can also use it to identify trends, especially within a certain niche, see what's kind of picking up traction, what is suddenly being talked about more and has that upward trajectory. So you can, it kind of, sometimes there are ways to jump on these trends. And if you've got if you're in on it early, you've got that time to create that content to get in, rather than be the person who creates trending content a week after the trend has ended.
Yeah, nice. And I think also not just trends as in like what are people talking about like from a content perspective, but trends of what's happening within the industry that, you know, that's, I don't know, causing problems or having big wins, or, you know, those long-term trends.
Yeah, topical dramas.
Yeah, totally. And it's not just the short-term trends that you want to pay attention to, it's the long-term things as well, because you want a long-term strategy at the end of the day, right? So what are people always talking about that are related to the brand? That's kind of important as well.
You know, there could be something in the news that talks about, you know, the increase in the cost of XYZ products. So then automatically the next day you could, or even the same day, you could be like, we are not increasing our prices.
Nice.
You know, it's being reactive to what's happening in the industry or in the news more broadly. So you can kind of react to that. And speed is of the essence.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Love that.
Another thing I love, and this is probably one of my favourite parts, is looking at competitor weaknesses. It sounds awful, doesn't it? But what I mean by that is, you know, what are their customers complaining about? So, and that could just be a case of going onto their social media platforms and seeing the comments, seeing the reviews. I also love going on like Google reviews, seeing what people are saying there, seeing what, in both positive, negative, what did they love? Because then what can we make content that shows that we also do that thing that they love? What don't they like? So then we can create content saying, look, some brands might do this, but we do this and we do it better.
Yeah. A good one for this as well is Amazon reviews. Going and looking at the Amazon reviews of related products or books or whatever. And so recently, I am a bit of a silk pillowcase kind of person. I love a silk pillowcase.
Oh, you little princess.
I love a silk pillowcase. But you have to be a bit picky with your silk pillowcases. So anyway, so I was doing some research for our ads course recently, and I thought, all right, I'm going to go and see what people are saying about silk pillowcases, because that would be great for copy. And I looked at the reviews, and some of the things that people were saying in the silk pillowcase reviews would be amazing for in your content, right? Because I want to make sure that I have got a real one, not a satin one. So people in the reviews are saying, this is not a fake silk or satin. Like, if you're selling silk pillowcases, make sure you're highlighting things like that. People also, one thing that I hadn't thought up was that there was quite a few people in the reviews that were saying, I love this pillowcase because it didn't soak up my skincare products. Now, that's not something that I would think of, but that could be a content angle. And you might not have thought of that unless you'd read the reviews, right? So if you go and look at people's reviews, it can give you different kind of angles that you can come at from your content as well. So I think that's that. Yeah. And I think if you're the sort of person who loves going on Rightmove or going and looking at company's house and looking and being really nosy, you will love going and looking at competitor reviews.
Yeah, it's like my favourite thing to do. I think as well as seeing, you know, finding those pain points as well and those weaknesses, you can also kind of get a general vibe of the sentiment around a product or service as well, can't you? Yeah. You can kind of understand the general feelings about it. Obviously you can do that by looking at your own content and your own response to that, but also looking at how people are responding across the industry. Yeah. You know, is it that some people are kind of thinking, oh, this is a bit of a fad, or is there negative feeling about it? Because then obviously that gives you the inspiration to go, okay, we need to address this. Yeah, and create content that hopefully changes that negative perspective, or share the positive. If it's everyone's loving it, then it's about kind of
finding out why they're loving it.
Yeah, and making hay while the sun shines.
Totally. Yeah, love it. And so when you've done all of that, right, you've done all that research manually, what else can you do that's like a little bit less manual? I feel like there's tools out there that can help us to go and do like some of the pings
heavy lifting,
some of the automated stuff, and some of that will be free. So like you can look in your Meta Business Suite and see mentions and stuff like that. You could set up Google alerts. You could go and do some TikTok searches. That's a little bit less automated, but
I just think it's worth saying, like, I don't think enough people know about the mentions and tags area of Meta Business Suite.
Yeah.
So if you don't know about that, you can just head to your Meta Business Suite and there's a whole section of where your business or your client's business has been mentioned or tagged. So to be fair, we don't go in there very often, do we? But when we do go in there, there's always content in there. We've never realised someone bloody mentioned us. It's a bit bad, really.
Yeah, it's like you don't get your notifications, but it's in there. It's annoying.
Yeah, really annoying. Sorry, carry on. But sorry, I butted in.
There's also that you can use paid tools to do some of this. Now, some of these tools will obviously be quite pricey, so you want to make sure that you're charging your clients well to cover them. So things like Brandwatch, Sprout Social, Agora Pulse is one that we used to use. Social Insider, if you want to go and see what content's working well for people.
Yeah.
All of those tools are fantastic for this sort of thing. Yeah. But again, like I said, make sure that your fees cover the investment of these tools because they are helping your clients, remember? It's something that's going to help that client, right?
And a top tip, if your client's been blocked by their competitors, got first-hand experience of this, you can still see the content in some of these tools like Social Insider.
Oh my God, that's an amazing tip. I'd never even thought of that.
Yeah.
Just let me crack open a Coke to celebrate.
Yeah, you can. This happened to my client and I was able to go in Social Insider and see what was happening anyway. So
I love that so much.
I know, yeah.
Oh, who can we go and look at? Anyway, moving on. I think there's some other things to just think about where you can go and look at, right? So you've got all the tools that can do some of these like automated things for you, but also think a little bit outside the box. Yes, you can do a Google search, but go and look on Reddit, places like that. Go and look, as I said, at doing a TikTok search. Spend some time in Facebook groups, follow some niche hashtags, or just go and do some searches on niche hashtags or localized hashtags or the local, what's it called? The location tag thing on Instagram. All of those sorts of places, brilliant for going and looking at stuff. Yeah. And set up those Google alerts for like keywords and things like that. You can set up on LinkedIn, you can set up feeds, can't you, for different people or for different
threads.
Yeah, and set all of those things up so that that's already set up. You just got to go and look.
Yeah, because you might be listening to this thinking, oh my God, this is an awful lot of stuff to do, but it really isn't. No. Like some of it. So, and it just becomes part of what you do. Like I used to, when I used to sit down to do my clients' work, I would go, right, I'm going to head into some Facebook groups that I'd joined just not to engage as my client, but because it was an industry-based group. And I would go and quickly have a search of things. I would read the most recent kind of what people are chatting about, see if there's any prompts, any ideas. I would search the brand name of the client, see if anything crops up, see if they've been mentioned. I would then, obviously, if I've had the alerts come through from Google, then I'd just react to whenever they come through. Sometimes I would go and search in Google and search news articles for certain terms. Like it's not a big job.
And also, I can guarantee that a lot of people who listen to this podcast will go into content creation and they will open their phone and they will scroll through Instagram or they will scroll through LinkedIn. So you're doing this research, you're just not doing it well. And it's taking you more time because you're not being specific about where you're looking.
And it's a bit of an echo chamber then, isn't it? If you're just using Instagram for inspiration, that's why everyone then talks about the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like this spiral effect. And so if you can take yourself out of that and go and look in like we've said, the groups, the Amazon reviews, the Google reviews, go on different platforms. I know like Twitter and X is a dive.
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe I just said Twitter and X. Twitter as in
showing
X.
Your age, Laura Davis.
I know. But that can be good because like journalists and things still use X quite a lot. So,
and it's great if you're looking for the negative sentiment.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of that on there. So just think outside the box because actually I think like I go on Instagram and I could happily scroll and I'd just be like, nah, it's all the same. Whereas actually you take yourself out, go and look at those competitor weaknesses, my favourite area, and just go and use that as your inspiration. It does give you a bit of a like, oh, I've so noticed someone said this about the competitor. I'm going to make sure the content is going to be better than that.
Yeah.
It does give you a bit of fire in your belly.
Definitely.
Or is that just
100%.
me?
No, I reckon it probably has the same effect for most people. Love a bit of a dopamine hit like that. Yeah. Keep it coming.
Absolutely.
So we've done all this research. We've gone and looked in all these groups. We've got the Google alerts, etc., etc. The most important thing that you need to remember is that don't just go and collect all of this information and just sit on it. Like, that's pointless. You're going to use it. Actually use it to make your content creation easier. Look at what people are saying. Think, oh, how can I create content about that? Rather than starting from scratch, right? And like adjust that content strategy based on what you're seeing, all that information that you're finding. Remember, everything's a test. This is going to help you with all of that testing and that, can I make this thing better by adding this one line that this person said about their skincare not sucking into their pillowcase? Can those things make a small difference? It's using all of that stuff that you found to try and get better results, but also to make your content creation easier.
Yeah. And don't just think, say the skincare in the silk pillow example, so niche. If you think, okay, we can create content on that, don't just go, I'm going to go and create some Instagram graphic about the silk thing and the skincare. Think, how am I going to make this into a reel? How am I going to make this into a carousel? How am I going to make this into a post? How can we talk about it in different ways?
Yeah.
And go and create those all now. You don't have to obviously use them all now, but whilst you've got that problem or that positive element of the product in your mind, go and create shitloads of content now.
Yeah. What's your how-to post? What's your 7 ways to? What's your, I don't know, all of those different things. Like, do it. Yeah. Brilliant tip. Love that.
Go and do all of that now whilst it's kind of fresh in your mind. Because as we all know, we have to repeat messages and we have to repeat them in different ways because different messages resonate with different people. So don't just make one little piece of content, because then you'll end up with a nice little bank of loads of good content. So when it comes to the summer holidays, you've got a shitloads of content to put out.
Love it. If anyone does manage a silk pillowcase company, by the way, let us know. Hopefully this podcast's helping you.
Yeah. Another thing I would say in terms of like taking action from all this research we've done is definitely keeping your clients in the loop.
Yeah.
Because as I mentioned it earlier, they will love you for that. They will love that and it shows that, yes, you know what you're doing. Yes, you've got your finger on the pulse. Yes, it's useful for them as a business because they understand when their brand's being mentioned. But also, it's a potential opportunity, I think, to increase your fees.
Yeah.
Because if you're finding that you're going in groups, for example, and there is shitloads of mentions or shitloads of content ideas, and therefore that does need more of your time, you can go to them and say, look, I know you're loving all of this, but actually I could do so much more. Can I increase my fees? Well, not can I? I'm going to.
And also, I think that if you're telling them that you're doing all of this stuff, that makes them realise you're not just posting content. So therefore, they can't just take their account back and do it themselves because they understand all of the different elements that you're doing.
Yeah, they don't know how you're doing all of this.
No.
You're just giving them the results. You're saying, oh, your business was mentioned in these places. We've created some content about it. Your competitors are struggling with this. Like, that's what my clients used to love the most. Is hearing what was going on with the competitors.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah.
But they don't know how you're doing that. So it's always when you have those kind of conversations or provide that kind of intelligence to a client, it's when they, like, I've had this so many times when they you can just see, it just constantly reminds them, as Laura says, this isn't just about putting posts on your Facebook page or your Instagram feed. This is more than that. So, and I do think it just sets you apart. And this is why we can charge the 4 figures that everyone should be charging.
Yeah.
Because you are keeping your finger on the pulse and probably no one else in that business is.
Yeah. Love that. Any mistakes that people should avoid? I feel like there probably are.
Yeah, I think we can be a bit too focused on like the mentions, can't we? Like the businesses that are being like the business, is it being tagged? And then that's it. We're not thinking wider and thinking all the other things that we've talked about today. They're not potentially looking at the bigger kind of more industry wide conversations. They're literally just looking at, has my client's business been mentioned?
Yeah.
So I'd say you could become quite tunnel vision, and you need to keep your mind open to listen into other industry conversations. And it could be conversations that are happening in other industries,
related,
that you can relate to, which I get could be a bit like, oh my God, I've got what? So I've got to listen to everything.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, just being aware of what's happening in the world, what's happening in the industry, reading the newspapers.
And it doesn't have to be like a massive wide range. Like if you're working for, I'm going to say skincare again, if you're working for a skincare brand and you're in a Facebook group and you're searching just for skincare, you could also search for related terms like moisturizer, etc., SPF. Yeah. But you might also think, well, what are people saying? Yeah, what are people saying about animal testing? What are people saying about makeup? What are people saying about like sweaty faces, chemicals, or acne? All of those kind of related things. So just think about that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the other mistake could be to ignore the negative feedback and just go in and searching for the positive stuff that you can talk about, where people, especially in reviews, with people just saying, right, really great stuff, and just leaning on the positive side. Whereas if you're looking at the negative stuff, you can see, well, what is this business being like slated for that we do differently that we can highlight? And looking at that negative stuff and flipping it in your content can be really good as well.
Yeah, and I suppose the final problem or mistake will be if you do all of this research and you do spend time listening, and yes, you might go and tell your client about it, but that's it. You don't actually take any action, and you don't use it.
Yeah, you're only telling them, by the way, you were in The Guardian last week and you're not doing anything else.
Yeah. And or I've found out everyone is slagging off this for the competitors. Like, well, that's great, but do something about it.
Yeah.
That's where it makes our lives easier. That's one of the reasons why we do it. So we can create more content and make our lives easier by having that constant ideas for your content. Constant ideas for your content. That's quite
constant ideas for your content. Yeah, it doesn't really work.
No. Yeah. So it's like just to take action and to use it to your advantage.
Yeah.
And nice. I think one thing before we finish is some businesses are going to have more opportunity, more things to look into, more reactions, more Google reviews to consume than others.
Yeah, like, I'm not being funny, but if you worked for Ryanair, for example, there will be a lot of mentions about how much that people have had to pay for their luggage. Oh my God, my flight was delayed. All of that stuff. Whereas if you're working for I'm going to say a greengrocer, because it wouldn't be a good podcast if I didn't. But if you're working for a greengrocer, way less comments, way less mentions, right? And so depending on the kind of business, the industry they're in, the size of the business, that's going to have a big impact on this.
Yeah, but I bet you for greengrocers, there's still loads of content out there. I bet you there'll be some.
Oh, totally.
Be someone,
people are always talking about melons. Yeah.
Yeah. There'll be somebody on Waitrose comment saying my raspberries were not up to the highest quality.
Yeah.
And you can use that to your "we're better than Waitrose" type of angle.
Tune in again for all the ideas for marketing silk pillowcases and greengrocers and skincare.
Yeah, I just think we're going to have a queue of those brands waiting to want to work with us directly.
100%. If anyone's got a discount for a nice silk pillowcase, you know where I am. Fire it into my DMs.
Oh, well, and me, because my daughter uses those as well.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, there we go.
Such a random way to end a podcast.
Yeah. So I hope that was useful for everybody. Don't be overwhelmed by social listening. You are, as we mentioned right at the start, probably already kind of doing this anyway.
Under the guise of research, for sure.
Yeah, but just keep doing it. Use it to your advantage. Keep your clients in the loop. Use it for content inspiration. Take action. And go go look at everybody's Google reviews. It's fascinating.
And if you see anyone mentioning us, feel free to let us know.
Yeah. Only
On that note, feel free to leave us a review if you have enjoyed this podcast, because that will help us too. You can do that wherever you're listening, or just dive into our DMs and let us know what you think. We are the Two Lauras on every platform. Although don't come into LinkedIn because we're rarely on there. But yeah, anywhere else. But yeah, leave us a review where you're listening. We would really, really appreciate it. And whilst you're there, hit subscribe so you make sure that you don't miss out on next week's episode. And we will be back, same time, same place next week. Enjoy. Adios, amigos.
Au revoir.